So Patrick Hale, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, director, writer, Body Electric. I first want to delve into Body Electric because I was checking that out as a Mafian.
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
yeah,
we've it's been slow going. Obviously, most of the production started this year, and I thought that it would be a nice way for people to kind of connect and get together safely, like in rather large spaces we were in. But I thought it would be kind of a cool thing because people were like indoors a lot. So um, I got a team together, my brother and Joe and Sean and us all built these like 5-foot models, and and they turned out amazing actually. So and we got warehouse space and everything. So um, but getting them out to actually build these things was a logistical nightmare because of COVID. But we ended up getting a lot done, and now we are going into the warehouse and actually shooting these for the live action trailer that I want to release before December 31st.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
this is incredible. This is intense. Have you read? Oh, what the hell was it? Have you? So it's the so. Have you read 20? Was it 2069 and then 3001? The Final Odyssey.
I haven't read The Final Odyssey.
Okay.
Um, was that still Arthur C. Clarke? Did Arthur C. Clarke still write that one, or was that
So
like his son or something?
yeah, so long story short, Arthur C. Clarke wrote a short called The Sentinel. Stanley Kubrick got a hold of it. They expanded upon it for 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then Arthur C. Clarke wrote three follow-up novels. 2010, the second Odyssey, which they made into a movie. 2010, the year we made contact, and then he wrote 2069, I want to say, and then he wrote 3001. And so when I was watching this, the first thing I noticed was that these towers going into space, and
Mm-hmm.
that was that was sort of an aspect into sort of the ending of 2069, and then the major advancements in 3001, where they did it with like diamonds being travel devices, communication devices. I don't. I read it so long ago that it was. But
Yeah, I mean, his writing's pretty dense too.
yeah,
It's well because I mean the guy knew what he was talking about, which is why I think Stanley Kubrick wanted to write with him, because Stanley Kubrick's for all of his flaws, he's really good at um, realism,
yeah,
making it even with a movie like Barry Lyndon. Stanley Kubrick, went to the actual places and went to like the ruins, and they had them like sleep out there for weeks and have training, and so I wanted to take that sort of mentality and apply it to the same science fiction that I wanted to write and direct. And so I actually went to one of my favorite futurists, who actually bears the namesake Isaac Arthur, who's on YouTube, and he's great. He's a wonderful scientist, but he thinks in practical applications of futuristic ideas.
hmm
So there was one episode that had a space elevator in it, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is amazing!"
yeah,
Space elevator. And then he kind of broke down how it could be possible, and he said something interesting. He said this could be done right now, and he's like, there are in fact people that are doing it. So then I contacted Brian Versteeg, who is a conceptual artist for NASA, and had a conversation with him. And he's just like just like us. He's like a 35-year-old dude. He's got a kid like running around, and he's drawing these amazing concepts for NASA. And so we kind of storyboarded this concept where we're using an asteroid as ballast, and material and a base of operations for everything that goes outside of Earth. But I then asked him, like, okay, so I want to build a space elevator. Would I build it from the ground up, or would I build it from, top down? And he's like, you would never build it from the ground up, because you just couldn't get as high as you wanted because of weight and all these, because of gravity, essentially. So he's like, the only way to build it really is to like toss a fishing line down, like literally.
Yeah.
And just let it go. And then someone attaches a bigger rope to it and you haul it up, and then it becomes this like sort of what the inside of a bouncy ball would look like, like rubber bands sort of.
Yeah.
And he's like, there'd be things going up and down this, like constantly repairing the wire. And I just took that idea and I ran with it. And I wanted to also shoot it, most of it in practical effects. So then I had to learn how to model. We all learned how to model. We had a crash course in modeling, essentially. We're like, what do we use that's better? Do we use plywood? Do we use mat board? Do we use cardboard? How do we stick these things together? Because hot glue looks like crap. Do we use rubber cement? Do we use spray adhesive? How do we not poison each other in these rooms while, working on these huge things?
Right.
It was a hell of a learning process. Like, yeah, do you make it out of balsa wood? Like, everyone's like, oh, well, I think you build models out of balsa wood, right? And so we tried that, and that was terrible. So we ended up with like a combination of mat board, cardboard, and then I got the guys interested in 3D printing. So then I printed out I made greebles for it. And so we would have these like little plastic pieces that look like, various chunks of what you would find on a space elevator, I guess, control shafts and cranks and and it worked. And I can't believe it. I don't know if it was a stroke of luck or whether it was a certain degree of intrepidity that we all had, but the end product was I think it made us all go, oh, that's how they did it. And so now I'm in the process of designing a motion control rig so I can sort of move the camera to scale. And what does that look like? What kind of scale is this? What does a window look like? Like a standard today window, what would it look like at scale? Would it be like this big, or would it be like this big? And then you narrow it down and you're like, okay, well, I can't shoot. Obviously, I don't want to put a person in front of it because I don't want to give us the illusion of scale. And so you're like, okay, how big are the vehicles in this place? And then you have to design the vehicles. So it's like one thing after the other. But it's so much fun. And a lot of people have started to. Foundation just came out, I think, on Apple, which has a space elevator. And I totally forgot that Isaac Asimov wrote that in Foundation 50 years ago. So I'm now rereading Foundation. I think ours is better.
Right. So Foundation by Asimov.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's really. I don't want to say difficult, but sometimes it's, I guess, for lack of a better word, it's difficult for me to get back into reading. There were times when I was just binge reading things obviously I've seen the movies 2001 and 2010, but then I just binge read 2069, 3001. And then I try to read, some other Arthur C. Clarke stuff. And then I wanted to delve into like Philip K. Dick stuff because, Blade Runner and Minority Report and, being a movie buff, you kind of want to start reading what has stuff by the author that has been made into a movie. But yeah, Asimov is definitely. I have some of his stuff on the Kindle to like get around to, sooner than later. But
I do the audio books now.
Yeah.
But even that's sort of, I feel like I'm cheating. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say I read it. Like people,
Yeah, you can.
people always come to me and they're like, oh man, I just read the, Sister of the Traveling Pants, and I'm like, you didn't read it.
You listen to it.
You
Hey,
listen.
no, it's fine. I mean, listen, if you were able, if someone else read it to you and you paid attention and you absorbed it, then
But
maybe
you wouldn't say you read it if it was your mom reading it to you.
then all right, what's the term for that then?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess you.
I ingested it.
Just like footage.
I
ingested it.
Not ingested it. I absorbed it. I experienced the book. I experienced it.
And it's better. It's better. I like audiobooks. Reading's sort of a pain in the ass now. My hand's used to the weight of a phone, and like a book, it's just like, nah, I don't need this.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I do my best to like Kindle or ebook stuff to the best of my ability. But sometimes, man, I mean, like, I'm not necessarily an author or a writer. I want to experience what it is I do. And so I'm the one that's like, no, I'm going to watch a movie instead. But then, okay, here we are, we're filmmakers. Let's say, we're a big fan of Arthur C. Clarke. We want to continue to make movies on his work.
Right.
We got to at least read the book somehow or experience it.
Yeah. I mean, and how do you, especially during this, during COVID, I was going out of my mind. A lot of people were, but I was like, if I'm sitting at home and all I'm doing is editing, some corporate, they're sending me footage now of something they did at the office because they can't fly us out there now because of all these COVID restrictions. And it's the worst footage ever, but I still have to do it. Like, why am I not like reading more about, all these other things? And I just felt a little bit embarrassed after a while that I wasn't doing anything. So I sort of galvanized the team and made everyone be interested in something again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everyone has lost that now. Everyone's kind of, I look around, everyone's kind of sad.
Well, has this project you've been working on, has this been during quarantine?
This is, I started.
Well, when did you guys start?
Yeah, I started, was it this year? It couldn't have been this year. Maybe it was this year. I was between Michael Adams, my writing partner, and I were stuck. We had written a screenplay called The Journey Back, and a science fiction screenplay, but we wanted to deal with time travel, and we had written it, and we reread it, and we were like, this is bad, and we were like, we got to rewrite this. We got to just start from scratch and go back. And the thought of that was so daunting that we were like, but before that, let's write something else. Let's make sure we can write something that we can film instead of writing a film that we're going to try and sell that has like big special effects and like all this stuff. Let's write a practical 20-minute film that is set in a universe that we built, that we can film with a small crew, like my production company. So it's just like 5 or 6 people with our cameras for like $5,000. That was the idea. And so we sat down and we looked at the stories we loved, and I know I wanted to do something that was with robots, and I wanted to do a morality tale, and I wanted to do a universe that's not as all of the science fiction now. It's just everything is out to like kill you, and there's no real ethical drama. It's more like a soap opera in space, which is not what I want to watch. I want to watch Star Trek 1994, height of the series, interesting episodic science fiction. That's what I want. And I think most dudes my age and women like that because it's interesting on many layers. So I wanted to write that.
Like the next generation type of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a standalone story that like had dealt with real issues and wasn't exactly a one for one of society today, but was maybe took a closer look at some of the issues that we were dealing with, everything that happened this year with Black Lives Matter and voter suppression, and I'm not going to say his name, but I think we all know who he is. And but I wanted to sort of write something like that was decidedly 2020, and I think we got there, and it was kind of because I was sitting at home, and I was like, I'm going to build it. I'm going to just make a CD, because it's not written like that. There's no mention. There's no mention of a space tower, a space elevator anywhere in the screenplay.
Right.
And so, but we had to build a world, right? So I was like, why not? Let's just build. Why can't we do it? Why can't, like, John Dykstra and Lucas had like a warehouse that there's 8 dudes with like camera equipment. They built like a Death Star, and the Death Star was like 8 pool tables, and they had just taken apart a bunch of battleship components and put it on there. And I was like, why aren't people doing this anymore?
Right.
It looked great. It looked like a real thing because it was real. And I was like, we'll do that. And you know what? It fucking looks great, and it works. But I wanted to also delve into 3D programming. So Unreal, they made the Unreal Engine free. Anyone can download this amazing tool and not only make a good picture or a good video, but they can mess around with like video game development. So I got into that, and then I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So not only do I have Body Electric, but I also you can also walk around the world, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually walk around the world of Body Electric and go to there's like a pub, and I want to go up to the asteroid. So I made miles and miles of asteroid, and this guy contacted me from LinkedIn, and he was like, how many polygons is this? And because I've never 3D modeled before, like I had no idea what's a lot of polygons. And he was like, what's the polygon count in your Blender? And I was like, I'm up to like 25 million. And he's like, what? He's like, you've got to shut some of that off. Is your computer running really slow? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, just decheck all these things. And I did. And so I was like, I'm going to get to know you better. You're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong. So, but just everyone is doing YouTube tutorials for free that are better than anything you could learn in college.
Yeah.
All that knowledge is just sitting there.
And that's going back to what are we doing in this quarantine? And I ran out of stuff. I had so much stuff in the can that we had shot pre-COVID, and I started editing. But now I've got screenplays, features and shorts, and like, okay, the second that Unreal thing, the second I saw that available for free, I said, all right, I can start designing a game, or at least a universe, and I could probably take this technology, half Unreal and then half After Effects, half Final Cut, and start dabbling with like motion comics, and then start dabbling with so about 3 years ago, me and some partners, we started 2 different web series. And long story short, because I've brought it up on this podcast before, but if you're familiar with those ID crime shows, I thought I played a detective on like 80 of those episodes of those crime shows, detective interrogating somebody, yelling at somebody at the crime scene, kind of investigating it. And then it dawned on me, like, okay, I see how independently these are produced, how low budget. And then it dawned on me, what if Bruce Wayne went home, had a cocktail, and watched ID? What would those episodes be about, and how would they look? And so we started our own crime show based in the DC universe, our own crime show based in the Marvel universe.
Nice.
And then to be like super fanboyish, we chose like the C level villains, not even like the B or A level villains, like the C, really obscure. But because we're trying to tap into like, okay, it's this production, kind of like crime shows. People dig crime shows, but people are also huge on the superhero phenomenon that's been happening for the last 15 years. People but big thing on YouTube is these like super villain origins. So it's like 3 or 4 kind of aspects all tied into one. And so, okay, I've been on the set and I'm always the detective in the dramatic reenactments. Well, it's easy to throw some people against a green screen, but how do we get these dramatic reenactments? So we started going to Comic-Cons, filming cosplayers and all sorts of different costumes. And hey, throw me some crazy moves and we'll obscure it and blur it and throw some weird, like black and blue or dark, obscure bluish effects on it, kind of like those shows always have. Yeah. Then the quarantine happened. And so not only can I not go to Comic-Cons and film cosplayers, but every freaking cosplayer wants to be Harley Quinn and Batman and Wonder Woman and Captain America. They're not going to be Ratcatcher. They've never heard of Ratcatcher or the Penny Plunderer or Grizzly, which is some.
What I could imagine these guys being also like they spend a lot of time on their costumes, right? Like that's like a thing. Like that's they're one time a year. It's working up to that costume. Where they're going to play Harley Quinn.
Yeah. But I mean, listen, I'm still going to film them, and I'm still getting some quality footage from some quality costume, makeup, and prop experts. These guys and gals are incredible.
How do you sell them on doing a C-level villain then?
Exactly my point. So I linked up with a couple on Instagram, showed them what I'm doing, and. So, for example, let's just say, Batman's always beating up somebody. So I'm using the footage of Batman kind of like in this dramatic reenactment, kind of like that music, bum, 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 comes in. But I don't have cosplayers dressed up like Ratcatcher. But the idea is maybe use Unreal and, you create these 2 bodies and I can put that outfit on each one and actually have a fight between Ratcatcher and Batman in Unreal. And then on top of that, export that, then throw it in Final Cut, blur it, do the weird obscure. I can like crop in and do some weird obscure Ken Burns type camera effects and some blur effects and some color effects. And it would look real because Unreal is kicking out such high quality, high res renders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that could be my dramatic reenactment. And then once we get back out here, taking into account these cosplayers down the road, these could be the folks that we go to for, this new media, this strange experimental kind of project that we have going. But if there's no Comic-Cons, I'm not going to do a Zoom shoot and
yeah, God. That would be so bad. But okay, so you're at the Comic-Con, you find Ratcatcher.
No, I don't. Like,
well, okay, so in no scenario, but even if you did, then what? You would go
like, hey, yeah, like I pull them to a side and be like, hey, I'm working on this project. This is what we're doing. Can I get some moves? Can I get some, can I get some poses? Can I get some fight stances? And I would usually have, like, for example, best case scenario, I'm always getting a Batman or a Captain America or a Spider-Man. So I'd say, hey, throw me some action scenes together. And they might do a couple of kicks. I'm like, for safety purposes, just go half speed, keep it real slow, keep it real cool, because I'm really going to slow it down anyway.
Sure. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And like you're going in slow-mo.
Yeah, it's always so they're kind of doing it slow, but I'm going to slow-mo it even more. I'm shooting at a really high frame rate. And so when I drop it down to 24, it's like uber slow-mo, very dramatic, very slow-mo, artsy, Matrix-like for the show. But the thing is, I reach from a budget standpoint, from what I'm putting in and from what cosplayers are putting in, am I going to reach out to a cosplayer and say, hey, do this? I can't pay you. We're on such a low budget. I can't pay you. But hey, make a costume for Ratcatcher. I'll meet you. They're probably not going to do that because they're going to do what they want to do, right? Yep. But I've seen some bizarre costumes. I've seen some intricate, crazy costumes. Someone was playing a character from a completely obscure RPG video game. but it still looked like a Stark suit, a Tony Stark suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I still filmed them, and I still added my effects and added my post-production effects and my whole thing to it.
Do you have a pilot episode yet? Or
yeah, we're up to second seasons of both things on our channel. On our channel.
Okay.
Yeah, I can definitely send you a link. So
please. I thought you were leading up to COVID put a hard stop on my. Okay, but you already have.
COVID kind of put a hard stop on season 3 and
Gotcha.
Producing the 3rd and 4th seasons. But we're still doing that, and
costumes are expensive, man. I was having this recurring sort of dream that I wanted to make into a full size. So this is basically, I wanted to do all of the things that I love to do. So one of the things that I wanted to do was like I wanted to create like a alien, but where do you start that? What is that process? And then I kept on having a dream about like this rat being caught in a cage and like a bunch of wires. So I was like, instead of wires, I can just pour paint into slots and then have the costume inside, so it looks like it's kind of dripping oil in like different levels. And I was like, okay, that's kind of a cool image. And then I was like, but I don't want to do just a close-up. I want to get like a wide shot of them. And so I drew it all out, and I started to price it out. And because I 3D printed, I could 3D print all of the tail that I needed in like, descending order. So you can print like, a reticulating rat tail, which is actually what this thing is. Oh, it's a skeletal rat. So I print out a skeletal tail, and that's reticulating and goes back and forth. And I ordered a $70 Etsy mask because I just didn't have the skills to make one myself. But like, that is even an Etsy mask, that's a mask,
mm-hmm.
$75. So I could imagine full-size suits made to order, special sizes. It would have been, you're dealing with like $400, $500, maybe $1,000 probably. But that's way beyond the budget of anything we can do.
And so, yeah, if you were to go back, I mean, I've talked to a number of some of the associate producers of the real world crime shows, and they pretty much tell me, like each episode is probably 25,000, anywhere between 15 to 25,000 per ep. So that's 10. So let's say there's 10 eps. That's that could be $250,000 per season. If there's 10 eps.
Is that with the whole production?
Each episode roughly comes out to maybe, let's say $20,000 just for an episode. That's like a week or two production. You got cast, you got crew, and still with a small. It was always a small crew, and maybe you got a bunch of different detectives maybe on the case. Some of the perps, some of the witnesses, some of the family members. They're always doing the dramatic reenactments. Who knows how much it costs to have like those experts, those talking heads sitting against a green screen. They shoot that, at a studio, maybe in New York or LA. Who knows how much those experts are to come in and discuss the case? Or, a lot of times they have one of the real detectives that was on the case,
right,
discussing it too. I mean, a lot of times these shows have a host. How much is that host per season? How much is that host per episode? So all these different factors. Now, okay, let's take a look at that number. But you said it. We're not dealing with just regular dudes. Every other husband that kills their wife is wearing what? Like a t-shirt and jeans, a hoodie, a jacket. Mm-hmm. Every detective is wearing a suit jacket, a button-up shirt, and a tie, and a gun holster. But we're talking about DC and Marvel supervillains. So you got some intricate, crazy costumes. You got superheroes. You got Thor with lightning coming out of a hammer, beating up these, supervillains. You got Batman beating up these supervillains. You got these supervillains that have super costumes and weapons and gadgets, and they're bizarre.
I just watched. We rewatched Batman and Batman Returns. old Tim Burton, his fingerprints are all over those movies. But those movies are those were the works of art.
Yeah.
The costume design, the set design, 18 sound stages, 1989, Britain, Tim Burton. He must have pulled some strings. Like, that must have been a tough sell. The Batman in 1989.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on that wall inside at that meeting when he was selling it. Because you're talking about astronomical amounts of money for
just costume, makeup, and props. And so, and like I said, I've played a detective on a number of these shows, or I've played a cop on a number of these shows. And if I'm a detective, they're telling me bring my own stuff. I got my own wardrobe set aside. I've got a couple of different suit jackets, maybe 10 different button-up shirts, 10 different ties, 3 different slacks. I bring it all to set, and they're like, wear this. They're not even paid for wardrobe, because 9 out of 10 times they're asking actors to bring their own wardrobe. And that's how I know when I see that in the casting, I'm like, oh, I see the kind of level this is. I mean, I love it, and it pays pretty well, and I love doing it. I'm on TV, so there's no complaints there.
Is this ID Discovery?
Investigation Discovery. Yeah.
Yes, I work, dude. I've edited some of your shows, probably.
Yeah.
I did. I spent some time at Discovery. They gave me my first assistant editor position years, like 12 years ago. But I remember Investigation Discovery. I was working on, we were ingesting footage from those XD cams that they were shooting back in the day. But yeah, it's better, actually.
So were you at Discovery in Silver Spring?
I was.
Because I actually worked at Discovery 04 to 09 at the warehouse.
Wait, you're not talking about Discovery Studios, right?
I'm talking about that little promo, in Silver Spring, but off Kennett Street, the little promo building where they cut all the promos.
I think you're talking about Discovery Studios. That's what. Yeah. It was like off. It was like around the corner and behind.
Yep.
You had to walk by like a shopping center.
Yep.
Right, and then it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's where I. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably how.
That was a weird place. Well, I was doing like they gave me the shittiest shifts. So new. So I got like the 1 o'clock to 7 a.m. ingesting like fucking dog. What was it? Dog footage. It was because they were get for Puppy Bowl.
Yeah, man.
Hours of ID Discovery and Puppy Bowl footage.
Oh yeah, everybody loved Puppy Bowl because that was actually an original production.
Yes.
Of Discovery, in that they shot it in that studio in that warehouse, and everybody was so excited because we're actually holding a camera, whereas everything else was produced by outside production houses.
Which I didn't know. I didn't like when I went there. I thought like I was under the impression that Discovery shot all of the things that Discovery did, and I didn't know that
they just acquire it. Yeah,
acquire it.
If you're Sirens Media or your Storyhouse Productions, you pitch the show to Discovery, and they'll advance you whatever for a pilot. And so you shoot the pilot, and they're like, "Okay, we love it. This is our 80th crime show, but we love it, so we'll greenlight you for like 2 more seasons." And then they start shooting the seasons, and then I get the call to play a detective in something. And then like 6 months later, I see it on ID. But yeah, they don't directly produce. They commission shows from production houses. Yeah,
it blew me away. I was like, it made me not want to work there anymore.
Well, I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but I did leave myself and went full-time freelance and just bounced from gig to gig. And the upside to that, I mean, is I think some years later, I got a call from a buddy of mine who was still at Discovery. And he goes, "Dude, I just saw you in a show. Was that you? Are you acting now?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." So, I mean, a few little highlights here and there in life with
it's made to churn. It's not, it was so weird, man. I grew up, I loved Discovery Channel. Like that was that was the pinnacle for me, was like, I want to work for Discovery Channel. Like when I get there, they'll tell me what I want to do with the rest of my life, sort of thing. So I made it there, and they were like, press this button. You know, you got to go over here and remove this tape, put it into this thing. And I was like, this is not, I don't want to do this. I was like, this is a fucking nightmare.
All the cool stuff was done by the outside.
Not even there.
Production
Yeah,
houses.
someone somewhere else. And so I wanted to be those people.
Yeah, well, that's what I started doing. I started networking and you know, every weekend was a side project, a little passion project, an independent thing. Used all my vacation time, all my personal days, all my vacation days. If someone said, "Hey, man, I got a film. I need an AD on an independent thing for a week," and I would just put that in for my vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
I never really took a vacation. I kept my sick days for when, like, since I was working a full-time and a part-time, then my body would like collapse for a day or two, and I would put in those sick days, but that was it. I mean, it was every weekend, all my vacation days and personal days were, side projects, you know, indie gigs.
Did you ever do, did you do the 48-hour film festival? Never.
I probably should have taken a chance once with that thing, just to see what I'm capable of. But I never had the balls for it. I never had.
It's fucking like tough. It's not. It's by no means. Well, like I kind of felt. I just like shooting. So I like gathering the people and like sitting in a room and collaborating and then going to shoot the thing. I think that's amazing. But I kind of fell into the trap where I thought, like I would do it twice a year for I think like 8 years. And everybody by the end of it, they were like, this isn't, you know, this is fun, but it's not helping at all. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
It's a cool challenge.
Right.
But I mean, Jesus, 16 times you did it. Like, yeah. I mean, it's a cool challenge, and it's a cool way. I mean, for me, if had I done it, I probably would have done it once or twice and been like, yep, I did that. And hopefully the thing came out good. Right. But
most of them are so bad. It was like, it was torture. Well, and like, you know, I'll be fair. Ours weren't great, but they were mostly watchable. But some of these, oof.
Yeah, but
there was, but great. But that's what it's for, though. That's what it's for.
You know, but on top of that, you know, what I tell a lot of people is that, you know, that's a cool thing, but you know, a film or a book or a music video needs to be crafted, you know, prepared, you know, strategically planned for, artistically and creatively crafted and all that thing. But then on the reverse side of that, you got to pull the trigger on it. Like I know so many people that I know a couple of colleagues, they've been talking 2 years about doing one music video. And I'm like, dude, this is a 4-minute thing. The track I think is 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So why is it taking 2 years to make a 4-minute music video? Like what the fuck's taking so long?
Oh man.
And I mean, and it was a year plus before the quarantine. Like what? It's a fucking song, man. It's not a feature.
Well, we just shot this stuff for the Phillips Gallery. One of my favorite probably art galleries in the world is just right here in DC, and it has like these, you know, Renoir and Matisse and like all these amazing black artists like Jacobson and in one tiny location. And so I finally got the opportunity to work with them like this past month, and they wanted to sort of bridge the gap between theater and film. So because all the theater actors they're all out of work. Nobody's going to the theater anymore. What are they doing? Like, you know, these are like real actors. Like that was their business. That was their job. And so, but theater and film are very different, and a lot of them can't make the leap because it is a different it's a different game.
Yeah.
There's, you know, you're not thinking from start to finish. You're thinking what's the next action, and that action can be out of sequence. And so when you do that, then you have to look at the story a different way, and you can't absorb it that way. And they just have this really tough time of kind of over explaining things when you don't need that in your head as a film actor before the scene.
Right.
So it was definitely a challenge, and they got to see sort of how you create. I wanted them to experience like in-camera effects, things that would you can do. So they were thinking like big stuff. They were thinking like we'd green screen out a guy, get him in a green screen suit, and then have him walk around the Phillips gallery holding something, so it appears that something is floating.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they wanted to do. And I was like, whoa, no way. Right. No way. No way. Would you ever put a person in a green screen suit inside of a space that you didn't know how it was going to be lit from one day to the next? And like you couldn't come in and rehearse, so you couldn't get the lighting right, and like they didn't understand that. So I made like a little explainer video on like why green screen requires like a good key, what is a key, and stuff like that. And so then we took like we made this trumpet fly through space just by holding it in front of the camera lens and turning it, and they were like, oh, okay,
yeah,
and it clicked.
It's like 1940s technology. And it's like and it works perfectly.
Yeah, I just watched Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which is filmed all with like 1940s and below techniques, and it's fucking like, it's not a great movie, but it's one of the best portrayals of Dracula. I think he does a great job, but it is stylized and it looks fucking good.
And like, and you know, like I think and the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to like those old texts that they did in the 40s, 50s, and what he did in that movie, there was like his shadow, right? Like Dracula's coming down their step when Dracula had that white hair tied back in that bottle.
Yeah.
He's coming down with his cloak, but his shadow's doing something different.
Yep. Because
they had a double against a light, and that light was pointed differently, but he was lit differently. So that wasn't his shadow. They were like some other person off camera was mocking his walking and then doing something, and then like that person stopped, but Gary Oldman kept walking, and it was so trippy.
Yeah.
And then to come to find out that's not CGI, because fuck going back and trying to like do CGI when we knock it out now. I'm not going to sit here and render for days.
Oh,
fucking rendering, bro. Like that's what kills me. And that's what, and my colleagues don't get that. They're like, man, we can do this. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that, dude, because I know for a fact I'm the only one going to be editing this. We're going to do a lot of shit much more simpler. And say, for example, the crime show that we're doing, the joke is that it's a cheap crime show on ID. Mm-hmm. That's the vision. And there was a lot of headbutting. Man, if we pump more money into it, I'm like, dude, we can do that with anything. The vision, the whole vision of this crime show based in the DC or Marvel universe is that it's a cheap crime show on ID. I've been on these sets, and they have been on these sets. You remember they had us just walk down the thing, and then when we watched the episode on TV, you can't even tell it's us. We started laughing, like me and two buddies of mine. The three of us, we played these U.S. Marshals escorting these criminals to court. And they did this effect on it. You couldn't even tell it was us. We knew it was.
For that show, did you guys film on, were you on location, or did you go onto, was it all like sets?
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with Maryland. There's this defunct Bible college in Maryland, and they shoot all the episodes in this building because there's a whole building just empty, right? And so they got offices for interrogations. They got offices for, they have other rooms that they've set up for like bedrooms. Because this huge Bible college used to be exactly that, a Bible college. And then somebody else, then it went bankrupt. Somebody else bought it, but half of it's empty. So there's a bunch of empty dorms and there's a bunch of empty office. Yeah.
Where is wait, where? I want this.
I'll send you the link offline.
Okay.
I'll send you the link offline, and I'm sure there's a way for you to like contact the folks, and there's got to be, because every other shoot, all the ID crime shows that you have seen on ID in the last 6 years, every other shoot day has been on this property, inside or out. There's apartments that are still working, but there's like a dorm building and an office building that's just empty.
So it's just like this place has like a caretaker, I'm imagining, and they just
it still has an operational church, and it still has an operational administration, but what's funny, it's 2 minutes away from where I grew up. It's in PG County, Maryland. So it's 2 minutes away from where my mom used to, do a bunch of stuff for our church, and she went there. She used to go to their bookstore and buy stuff. And so I was familiar with this place. It's next to this football field, soccer field that I used to do Boys and Girls Club at. And so it was like this huge functioning Bible college, Bible bookstore. It was a seminary. I think it was Presbyterian or Lutheran or Baptist or something like that. So when I was growing up, and then fast forward 30 years later, they're like, hey, this is our location. I'm like, I used to live like 5 minutes from there. Is that Christian bookstore? They're like, no, it's such and such Bible college. I'm like, get this shit out of here. So we go there, and there's like I want to say a building or a building and a half, 1.5 buildings. Right. That are just empty. Like the space is not being used. So they rent it out to productions all the time. And
crazy. Where
was I going with that? Yeah. But the scene I'm talking about, but I'm interested. Oh, I think there's a little bit of a Zoom delay. You still there? Yep. I gotcha. Yeah. So, but we were just walking down the hallway. I've done scenes down this one hallway 14 different times. And this crew's been there probably 140 different times. They just shoot it slightly differently. They'll close a blind, they'll open a blind, they'll use a different filter. They've been there so many times. But a lot of times, the general viewers of these crime shows, they don't care. They're getting the content, they're getting the story, they're drawn in. Oh, this other murderer, this terrible crime in the 80s versus this terrible crime in the 90s. It's all being shot in the one building.
What's your favorite? I'm guessing that you're a fan of these crime shows, otherwise you wouldn't be doing them. What's your favorite current kind of crime story?
Well, the reason why I'm doing the crime show stuff is because I was on them. There's such a draw for it. So when I'd done a couple episodes, and I told a buddy of mine, he goes, is one of them locked up abroad? And I'm like, never even heard of it. So he showed me episodes. He goes, I'm addicted to this. This is my buddy since I was 5. Never knew he was addicted to this show, Locked Up Abroad. And I'd never worked on that show, but I started showing him the other stuff. He goes, dude, people eat this shit up. And so people eat this shit up. My father-in-law, when me and my wife, first started dating, I told her, like, I act in some of these ID crime shows. She goes, my dad loves those. So having been on those sets, if I were to tell you right now, there is a quote unquote crime show that I love. It's called Dark Side of the Ring. And it's about crimes or murders or tragic happenstances with pro wrestlers.
Okay.
It's called Dark Side of the Ring. You can find it on Hulu. One of the best of this genre. It's shot just like those ID crime shows, but I think it's a Vice original, which is now on Hulu. But you've got the experts sitting against a green screen doing the talking head stuff. You got the archive footage, the archive photos, the forensic photos, the police reports, the 911 calls. But then you have the dramatic reenactments. But these actors are like bodybuilders playing pro wrestlers.
Who's your like go-to sort of grumpy kind of raspy old detective in these DC Marvel universes that you go to? Do you have one? You gotta have one. You gotta have one guy that's
in my crime shows?
Yeah.
So
isn't there
You do interviews, right?
So
mock interviews?
Yeah, right. We do mock interviews. So we have the specialists or the reporters against the green screen, right? So I have an actor that looks just like Clark Kent.
Okay.
So it's Clark Kent talking about it's Clark Kent talking about that criminal per that episode. Or
That's
there's
actually.
And I play Jeremiah Arkham, who's the founder of Arkham Asylum, who's more knowledgeable of these criminals in Gotham City than Jeremiah Arkham. He houses them in the Arkham Asylum. And then there's and then another buddy of mine looks just like this character called Lyle Bolton, who's the warden of Arkham Asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Marvel, we play a bit more obscure Marvel characters, but I play Captain Chris Keating of the NYPD, there's a whole underlying kind of, I don't want to spoil anything yet as we, progress with this series, but Chris Keating does not trust or like the Defenders. If you're familiar with who the Defenders are in the Marvel universe, they're Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Iron Fist. Okay. They all band together as the Defenders, and he doesn't trust them. He doesn't like them. And then there's two SHIELD agents that my other colleagues play, and they're against the green screen as the analysts, so like who would know more about these criminals than, former SHIELD agents, because SHIELD fell, in Captain America's Civil War. Mm-hmm. SHIELD fell. So these guys don't have a job anymore. But they got booked on this TV show to talk about these super criminals.
Making some good scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Chris Keating, who, the NYPD doesn't like him because he doesn't like or trust the Defenders. So he's probably retired, and now he's on this show. His gig is being this criminologist, criminal expert on this crime show on ID. And just like that show Homicide, which I think is on ID, but it's also Homicide Hunter. That's what it's called. Okay. It's a crime show called Homicide Hunter. And this guy's like a former detective. Now he's the host of the show. So, it's like I'm playing, but I wouldn't really say I was ever really a fan of a show. Just, I would always track down my episodes for my actor's reel, and find my scenes. But if I was to say there was a show that stood out, it would be Dark Side of the Ring. Because I was always a pro wrestling fan. And then, the loss of Owen Hart, the tragic story with Chris Benoit, the death of Miss Elizabeth, and then the death of Macho Man. They did episodes in each one of those. The death of Eddie Guerrero, the death of Brutus, the death of Bruiser Brody, and all those guys, So they do episodes, but it's just like it's shot and produced just like those crime shows with those blurry, dramatic, slow-mo reenactments, and they find muscle heads to like double for Hulk and Macho and all these wrestlers. It's a trip.
20,000 for an episode. Are episodes still? Here's a question I don't know the answer to. Are episodes still standard lengths, standard TV? It's like, is it what 42.3 seconds, 30 seconds, or something like that?
Right. What is it? 40
minutes.
44 minutes, 44 seconds. Yep.
Yeah, something like that. Oh man.
Or some networks, what is it? 45. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think these Vice episodes kind of come close to that, but you raise a good point. Like now with new media and the way that, serials are structured, The Mandalorian is a great example. The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. For example, season 2, episode 1 was about an hour long. Then the next episode was about 40 minutes. Then there was like a 32-minute episode. Then there was another 45-minute episode. Then there was another 38-minute episode.
I was wondering about that, but they never go over, they never cross the hour threshold unless it's like unless it continues directly from the previous storyline. That's another series.
Like some properties, like the season premiere might be longer than most of the other episodes, because it's like Mandalorian's back, so they're going to give you a little bit more for that first ep.
But do you think that's a luxury that only Disney and like sort of the higher tier production facilities can afford? Like to say that the 4th episode is going to be 40 minutes long instead of 22 minutes long is like, that's like adding $50,000 onto a budget. So,
Right.
you could never, you would have to seriously plan out your timeline in order for you to make those decisions on a small scale, I think. But it is kind of cool that we get to, like, if it's a longer story that needs to be told with more minutes and more screen time with like a certain subject, then I love that we're able to kind of do that now instead of being locked in at these sort of seemingly random 45-minute 0.45 to make room for commercial break sort of structures.
You're saying you like that you don't have to fit into this box? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I totally foresaw that happening, especially with YouTube definitely changed the game and started the whole streaming thing, but Netflix really took advantage of, we could just do shit on our own terms. And I'd say the average House of Cards episode are all the same length. They're still trying to remain somewhat structured. And some shows yes, and some shows no. But to me, it doesn't even matter either way. There's a show that me and the wife are watching called A Teacher with Kate Mara. It's about a teacher having an inappropriate relationship with a student. It's a great show, but it's a serious drama. But the episodes are only 25 minutes. That's not usual. Most comedies are like 25 minutes with commercials, or 30 minutes on HBO, and dramas.
Except for Curb. But Curb Your Enthusiasm's like, that's a random time too. It's like sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's like 30.
Curb.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find. So Netflix had this zombie outbreak movie. Oh, when did this thing come out?
Netflix original.
It was a Netflix original. It came out like 2-3 years ago. Netflix zombie show. What the hell was the name of this show? It's called Black Summer. That's what it was. All right. So Black Summer's episode lengths were like super variable. Black Summer. And it was a great show. And me and the wife were watching it, and it would be done in like one episode would be done in 15 minutes. And we're just like, what the hell's going on? The filmmakers didn't care. They told the story that they thought best told. They didn't put in filler. They didn't cut it too short. They didn't leave anything out. They didn't jam pack in shit that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I tried to look at, because I wanted to start to put out feelers for who can I pitch these shows to. We just finished our full screenplay, The Sound of Gravity, and so where does a person go to pitch a show anymore? Right. How does it work? Is it all venture capitalists and then only knowing people in downtown LA, or has it gotten a little easier? And the answer is kind of a mixed bag. Netflix. Yes, go ahead.
Well, no, I had a similar conversation with somebody, and first, their idea is fantastic, right? And they said, okay, but I want to pitch it to people. But I want to make sure they sign an NDA, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want them to steal my idea. But he told me, because he can trust me, and I said, dude, this is brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. Here's an example of a rock solid NDA that I always use. 99 out of 100 times, they're going to say, I'm not signing an NDA. And he goes, well, what should I do? It's like, just move on. But the alternative is shoot a pilot, shoot a pitch trailer, shoot a 5-minute skit from the show, shoot a 10-minute skit, shoot like a micro episode, shoot an entire episode, whatever you want to do. Because the thing with my crime show is I just pulled the trigger and I did the first season and the second season of each DC and Marvel universe. Now it's out there. You know, I think it's a pretty genius idea that neither DC nor Marvel has done, but I would love to sell it to them and say, listen, content's king. We use, if you thought you saw a skeleton crew, this is like, you know, even less. This is just like the rib cage of a crew.
Right.
On how to this is like bone marrow crew on how to shoot. We can pull off shooting this show. But content's king. You would have, you know, a whole new season. You have a whole new series, either for DC or Marvel, Disney Plus, DC Universe, whatever.
So what's your plan?
But the plan is I already have the show on YouTube. So there's my pitch. Right? And so if they could do it on their own without me. They could be like, well, because I don't own rights to DC or Marvel.
Have you reached out?
I've tried. I there's only so many people I know. There's only so many LinkedIn connections, and I did a search on LinkedIn for like Marvel, for Marvel or for Disney employees or DC or Warner employees. Said, hey, listen, I have this fan series on YouTube. I want you, please buy it for me. Content's king. This thing's kind of doing all right on YouTube. I think this would be a gold mine for you guys, especially during quarantine. And they're like, well, I'm not really in the development stage. I could pass it on. And crickets. I mean, if they steal it from me, I really have I can talk shit about them, but I really don't have any control because I don't have the right to with DC or Marvel. It's a fan series right now, but
I did this experiment where I wanted to get someone high level. We're talking VP or above of like a division of Netflix, and so I linked in a whole bunch of Netflix members, and Netflix is trying to become a inclusive place to work and develop and show your videos. So I was like, okay, why don't I contact sort of the inclusivity brand manager? So I got really obscure with it, but I got into a conversation with the VP of their branding and how they cater not only to 20 to 32-year-old white males, but also to 15 to 21-year-old females and minorities, and so we had a conversation about how would a small production company start to work its way up to doing sort of that sort of thing. And I just got a conversation rolling with not asking a direct can you help me, where do I go with this thing that I have that I want to give to the world, but an indirect question, and I kind of left it open for a doorway. So that might be an avenue you could do and say, but I would try maybe to reach out to Marvel, and because they get shit all the time. One of my best friends, best manager / coworker friends of mine from a long time ago. His cousin is M. Night Shyamalan, like actual cousin. And I was like, and so that was from years ago. I used to be a bartender, and so I saved that one. I always remembered that he was cousins with M. Night Shyamalan. And then 15 years later, I wrote a script, and I think it's good enough, and I have all this stuff, and I saved that one. And so I reached out, and I was like, hey, is there any way you can make introductions? And he was like, pump the brakes. M. Night gets a lot of, everyone wants to meet M. Night. So don't start with M. Night. And I was like, okay. And he was like, let me give you another connection of mine, another cousin of mine. And he's in LA right now, and he's a working actor, and he's been in lots of stuff on Netflix. And he's like, why don't you hook up with him and see what is going on? So I was like, okay, so that was another indirect thing. And so he was like, yeah, if you get along good with him, then we'll introduce you to M. Night. And he was telling me about he was having a, I don't know
I'm sure this is public knowledge somewhere, but M. Night has these Halloween festivals every year, and he lives on acres and acres of land in like Pennsylvania somewhere, and they have what do they call it? Oh God, they call it Shia-Maween. And they have like headless horsemen running around and shit like that, and man, that sounded cool. Anyway, I digress, but maybe there's a couple ideas in there.
Yeah, but like I've said to like a number of other people, like just shoot a little short excerpt of what it is you have in mind. Say, for example, this is a man on the street. Someone else was trying to pitch like this, something similar to like this man on the street type of comedy show. And so just go out there and shoot a couple of those things and put it on YouTube. Now you don't need an NDA. It's on your channel.
Right.
Copyrighted under your name, copyrighted under your brand. And then here's your pitch. The videos you already have, that content, that pieced together thing. And it's only like for example, let's take a look at even closer, better example is Impractical Jokers, right? Sure. Each episode I think is 30 minutes on True TV. There's about 4 different goofy skits in it, right? Well, if you want to, what's the way to pitch Impractical Jokers? Shoot 4 individual skits as 4 individual videos on your YouTube channel, and that's what you're pushing as your pitch.
But a show is not a show, unfortunately.
Right.
And I'm learning this more and more, is like, it's not just about the show, it's about the show runner. It's about the guy presenting the show. Just because you can make a thing doesn't mean you can make a thing consistently and at the same quality, which is why all these things go back to the same production houses, because they have a consistency that they can count on.
Yep.
And that's another huge.
So the trick.
Huge leap.
So another leap is not taking your show to Discovery Channel. It's taking your show to that production house that has 10 years experience with Discovery Channel. And so there's that extra leap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I'm there's so many, I was watching this thing, Aaron Sorkin was like, gave this like a 30-minute monologue about how he became famous, and he was like, don't follow my lead, because mine was pretty unique, and so that lends no help to anyone.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're just like, well, I just found I walked out of a New York theater and someone wanted to buy A Few Good Men. I said I didn't want to make A Few Good Men into a movie first. I wanted to make it into a stage play, and they gave me the rights to the stage play, and now I'm Aaron Sorkin. Right. And I was like, okay, go fuck yourself. That is not knowledge that helps me at all. So I'm actually, and I'm really glad that there's podcasts like this and stuff like that, because there needs to be some sort of a community that answers a lot of these questions, because these aren't these things aren't easy. There's a lot of moving pieces. Yeah.
I mean, you raise a good point. As far as an actor goes, I didn't go to school for acting. I went to school for film and TV production. And then out of necessity, I joined the National Guard, the Army National Guard, which is like part-time Army. And after one deployment, someone said, a colleague of mine said, I moved to Albuquerque and I started acting. And I said, and it just dawned on me, I have a military background now. I've got some experience as a sergeant, as a military police. So when I got home, I started applying to casting gigs, looking for cops, detectives, military roles. And within 3 months, I found an acting gig, and I had 5 minutes of a close-up on one of those crime shows. My first acting gig ever. It was a fucking close-up.
This is here in DC?
Yeah. And I had a fucking close-up as a cop, uniform, tacked out, guns, badge. I was interviewing this victim, close-up for 5 minutes on a crime show. And I'm like, oh, acting career. Who would have thunk? And then, bouncing some crew gigs here, some acting gigs here. A year or two after that, the whole year was acting. really well paying acting, playing army majors in the show House of Cards, playing detectives nonstop in all these different crime shows. There was no crew work that year. It was all acting. I kept getting booked out as an actor, and then the next year after that, it was mostly crew work and live streaming work and a lot of technical work a year after that, and then it was a little bit of a mix. But
what changed? Why did you? It was it just like
I mean,
was it through a will? Was it through a will of your own? Were you like, yeah, like?
No, I think I acted in way too many of those crime shows. They said we can't have the same detective on every fucking case of every crime on every crime show. So
right, we can only put him in so many varieties.
Exactly. It's you're not like this immortal Highlander cop that's just on every case. That's not realistic. But I think and plus I'm in this market and it's still yet somewhat of a small market. So I had been on every show in this market that, okay, hold on, pump the brakes. Maybe might have to take a season off, and then another season I started getting some acting gigs, and then it was, but like you said, like my entrance into acting was not, years of theater training and years of stage training, and what is it? I didn't go to the I didn't go to the actor's studio in New York. I didn't go to the Jules or whatever the hell those acting schools are. I didn't do that. I had experience producing shows and TV and film, but then I did this other thing, with some military experience. I was just eventually more uncomfortable in front of the camera, and it was just something I experimented with. I just took a leap.
Are you better? Are you a better filmmaker, you think, because of your work as an actor? Does it make you more sympathetic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like as an actor, I've seen a lot of directors direct, and I've picked up some cues. I picked up some tricks of the trade, and I've seen that. And then, but also having been an actor, I know what actors want and need and don't need from a director. And so there's that both sides of the fence type of deal, having experienced that.
What makes a good director, in your opinion?
A clear vision and preparation.
Preparation and clear vision. Yeah.
A clear vision. Yeah. I mean, preparation, that goes without saying, but a clear vision. And being an AD, I've dealt with directors that don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're trying to do too much. They don't have a clear vision. They changed their mind last time. And it's like, how many times have we been editing something and we want to go back and re-edit and go back and re-edit and go back and re-edit? Oh, I can make that better. I can make dude, you got to pull the trigger. When you're on set, it's like, we need to finish the scene. There's no like, oh, I just came up with this great idea last minute. No, dude, it's not how it works. So having AD experience to be a director, having actor experience to be a director, knowing what actors are capable of. I mean, I've dealt with directors that I dealt with one director that thought his actors were like Jackie Chan and female Jackie Chan, and it's like, bro, did you even ask them if they have
harder punches?
Like, I want this 15-minute fight scene, one long shot. And I'm like, dude, that's not fucking happening. and then the last blow is the guy tumbles down the stairs. That's not happening. Hell no. Someone's going to get killed on this set. Someone's going to die. And so it's like, okay, if you did your casting and you did your hiring, you got to know what people are capable of, and you have to make simple sacrifices. But then that's where those production hacks, thinking outside the box, being creative, with a little bit of sacrifice comes maybe this cool fucking idea, right?
Yeah.
I can't get that one thing. Well, I remember, there was like this one action movie where everything was shot so ridiculously, it came out great, but it was like the quickest fight scene. I mean, don't get me wrong. These long, wide, 15-minute long duration wide shots of Jackie Chan taking on 10 dudes. But these guys have been training in that for like decades. But then there was like some film where they had to really compact and shoot around this fight scene, and it came out hysterical. and entertaining.
It wasn't
But-
like it wasn't that kung fu movie that was
no,
where
not
they
Kung Pao.
rotoscoped that guy out and they put him in an old movie.
You
And
think Kung Pao
Yes,
enter the
yes,
fist?
yes,
No,
yes. I had
no,
idea.
it wasn't that.
I had no idea how when that movie came out, I was like, oh god, one of these movies. But they didn't do a good job of explaining what they were doing. They actually fucking rotoscoped that guy into a 1970s movie.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah, it was a hilarious movie, and they threw like aliens in there, and I think they did shoot some original stuff, to tack on into the ending. But yeah, they pretty much rotoscoped him into this old Chinese kung fu movie that apparently was a flop, and they shelved that movie. But so he decided to buy it because I don't know, it's a hilarious story on how that whole thing came about.
Yeah, and then he's just like sitting on he owns this movie flat out, right? Like owns all the rights to the actors, and so he's just sitting on this for years and years and years until I guess the technology becomes good enough, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, but no, what I'm thinking, I know it was a comedy, but they try to do this fight scene, and just the way it turned out, it was just entertaining, but you can tell, like I wish I could remember I can't even picture the actors, but like, it's just, you work around something to where it works,
Well,
and
like the Batman suit, the first Batman suit was, you couldn't turn your head. So how do you make an interesting fight with, a guy that can't turn his head? And you turn the camera, and you do a zillion, Dutch tilts through old wood in a cathedral, and you have interesting things going on in the background, and you have it well lit, and you're using a good lens, and all this stuff that people seem to take advantage of now, or take for granted now, where they're like, we'll just do it in post. We'll put a vignette on and do some cheesy halo effects around the,
I just remembered what it was I was thinking about. But you raised a good point with the first Batman, the first Michael Keaton Batman, the whole rooftop thing. That black guy was like throwing punches and kicks at him, and all he kept just doing was with his hands. And then I think he kicked some once. He bonks his head on the bell, falls down the entire church tower. Fucking hilarious! It was such a great fight scene. He was throwing. The other dude was hitting him with swords, and so he's blocking him again with his hands, and it works because it's like Tim Burton's kind of just ambiance, Tim Burton's kind of.
He built the world. He makes the rules.
Yeah, right. But then also with Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that fight scene he was supposed to have with the gunshot. He was supposed to have this long. He was supposed to have this long whip versus sword thing, and Harrison Ford, I think, had the flu, or he had like some stomach virus, or he had the shits or something on set. And it was his idea. I was like, I have a gun. Why don't I just shoot the guy? And it came out hysterical.
Wait, think about that though. Like for that shot, that was one take, right? He was like, I'm just gonna take out my gun and why don't I just shoot him? Right after that, he took a fucking huge shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sequence of events.
But it's like, but long story short, yeah. I mean, I just, a little bit of due diligence, a little bit of research, a little bit of fandom, a little bit of open-mindedness. Having been on both sides of the fence as an actor and as a director, it's like, let's play around with this. But we're filmmakers. This is not, we're not government officials. We're not planning a mission to Mars. We're not planning a military mission where there's hundreds of thousands of lives at stake. This is a film. This is art. We're supposed to have fun with it. Let's experiment. No, my vision, I dreamt this 5 years ago, and it's got to be this scene, and they do this step by step. And I was like, dude, we don't have the time. We don't have the money.
You've walked onto sets where it's been like, you could feel it, right? Like there's a thing that happens on a set where you can like feel when all the kind of air's been sucked out and everyone's having a bad time, and it's like the director's just in a bad mood and the AD is off, and like it casts like this weird glow on the set, and you can see it on screen. Like when there's bad director and the actors aren't, you know, being treated well, or they're being asked to do something that's ridiculous. Like, you feel that in the episode, you know. Super eerie, like silence. Everyone was super awkward. Something had been said earlier in the day or something, and you had just have to break the mood. But also the show must go on.
Yeah.
You know, there's a client that has to be, you know, satisfied no matter how hostile they are. There's still the client, and so you got to fix it, and that's part of filmmaking. That's why it's fun. It's problem solving, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what got us into this business in the first place was, you know, I saw Goonies and laughed my ass off. I saw, you know, Star Wars, and I wanted to be, you know, a Jedi. I saw Indiana Jones. I wanted to, like, you know, kill Nazis, you know, like, not to be a dick on set and to, like, ruin everybody's day. You know, I think we're all filmmakers because we all inherently want to be the good guy or support the good guy and make art and make comedy and make fiction and make fantasy come to life. And it's like, okay, so let's have fun with that. Let's experiment with that. We're running out of time. We don't have the money. What's some funny, cool shit we could do to make our day?
Right. That's always it. It's what serves the story best, right?
And that too, yeah. I mean, a couple of smacks, a couple of fights, and the guy trips over, and that's what I dumbed down the whole scene to. You know, they wrestle. He threw up against a wall. She smacked him, and he tripped, and he fell down the steps. And same stories told.
These action scenes now are. I think it started with the Third Born Identity, where it was just cut, and it's like it's only been 15 seconds, and I swear to God, there's 50 cuts, and you can't follow the action, and these are at really weird. It was right when gimbals were first starting to come out, so all these fucking videographers had the gimbal for the first time, and they're like whirling it around, and just so you have these like spins, and it's so bad and polluted it, and everyone started doing that thing, and now it's a thing now. That's a shame.
Oh yeah.
And then you go back to Batman, you're like, that's fucking clever. 3 shots. You know, Batman walks towards screen and goes like this. Sword guy goes like this. Wide shot. Bell falls on. That's it. 3 shots. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably the studio execs were taking note. They were like, okay, Tim Burton, this is the guy. You can make another one of these.
And I say it a lot. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes more is more. More is better. But
more is always more, though. More is always more.
Yeah, but a lot of times, you know, less is more. More simple, more subtle. Yeah. Less dialogue, less crazy cuts, simpler setup, you know, a little bit more straightforward telling and a little bit more straightforward exposition. And people are like, that works better.
Yeah, I had designed this whole. I got a bit carried away, and I had designed this whole city in Blender, and then I watched Batman a couple weeks ago, and I was like, well, I didn't need to do that at all. You know, but he used forced perspective, and he put the buildings on angles towards the camera, and as he rises up out of the city, it looks like the buildings are stacked on top of each other, and they weren't using a 3D program. They just built these little models and tilted them forward and had the camera go up. And then once I saw that, I was like, okay. And I sort of, I scratched what I was thinking. I was thinking, you know, I'd do a hybrid 3D miniature city at some point. And I was like, I'm just going to do the wide shots as sort of the 3D part. And I'll try and do as much in camera with these models as possible. And it looks better. It just looks better. The less is more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been going for a while, man. What's next on the agenda? What's the next set of plans? I mean, you kind of discussed it. You're still working on
Next is so this has changed from a one-part series, one-off thing into a 10-part series that I then want to sell to Netflix, which is why I was laying the groundwork for that early. So now that we have our full-length script written, I want to use that as sort of a collateral. So we're going to have a first and a last episode written. I want a first episode shot as well, and then I want to put the trailer out this spring. So I'll have a trailer by the summer. I'll have a full episode. We'll have the last episode in the series written, and then I'll also have a full script that I want to then make into a movie. So hopefully I can parlay a 10-part series with Netflix into a then movie deal, but we'll see how that goes. But I think I just found my lead actor from a gig that we were doing at Phillips. So I sent him I asked him, for a demo. How does that work now? Like, this is also something that I asked the guy the cousins of M. Night Shyamalan, who's the actor out in LA. I was like, what are people doing for demos now? Like, how does it work? Like, how does an actor get a gig now? And he's like, well, they just send in tapes. So they'll, the talent agency will send out 5 or 6 pages for them to read, and then they'll get online, they'll read it, and they'll send it to the director.
Yeah.
And I was like, has that that's always worked? And he's like, no, you used to have to like go in.
Yeah.
And sit there and wait and talk, and he's like, this is so much better, and it's better for I'm sure it's better for the director too, because that's gotta suck. That's gotta just be seeing good actors is hard enough. Seeing bad actors for 8 hours is it's mind numbing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's soul sucking.
I mean, think about the time that someone could, like, say if I was, the director, I could focus on other things, and I could knock out all this other prep. I could watch a video and
I could have someone else watch it for me and give me the, best 10 instead of, and at least you get a feel for the people too. Although it's got to be more impersonal now, right? So if I'm hiring someone.
No, I mean, I would probably watch the videos. But I'm gonna know right away. Like, the second this guy is dry, the second this girl is dull, skip, next one.
Right.
And then I'm like, wow, I like this guy. Flag, thumbnail, bookmark, whatever. Next one. Go through my bookmarks, rewatch, and then maybe do a second kind of flag or a second kind of bookmark. And then I would Skype with like the top 3, the top 5. Then I would Skype with them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
but that kind of a process, man, I was utilizing that kind of process years ago. Either being an actor, I was taking advantage of those kind of gigs that was asking for that kind of submission. Or as a director, I was saying, there were some smaller things, and there, for example, with the crime show, I was reaching out. I did an open casting for voiceover actors, and I said, all you need is a demo. Just send me a demo. And I got a lot of submissions without demos, delete. And then so then out of 30, I got 15 with demos. I would listen to those demos, didn't like half of those, delete. Didn't like their voice, didn't like, how they sounded. It didn't work for a crime show. So now I got 7, and it's like, okay, I like all these guys and gals. I'm going to utilize all of them. So I didn't have them do the entire show. I sent them maybe 5 scripts out of the whole series, and I got different voiceover people for different episodes.
What's the standard? What's the day rate for an actor now?
Well, because of the budget of this thing, it was non-paying.
Sure, but like, is there a universal standard that where it's kind of starts
for what? Actors or for voiceover work?
Lead actor, lead actor commercial. Do I set that budget? Because traditionally I have.
Yeah, you can, and if someone's willing to work within your budget, then they're willing to work within your budget.
I guess that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You get that actor that is this good that works for this much money.
yeah.
But it's not the same.
I wouldn't put a rate out there on the air, but I mean, on offline we can talk, more specific rates.
Yeah, I'd be interested. But I'm wondering, it's not because there is a standard for, and this is another thing about these actors they're struggling, man.
Yeah.
There's not that much stuff out there right now, and I could imagine, them. We have a standard in terms of like a production company.
Right.
There's like a standard price of like, this is a 3-day conference, I'm sure they get 3 similar bids and they pick the one bid that is probably the least amount of money, not the best company. That's pretty standard, but that's not the way it works with actors. So I don't know. I'd be interested in more of that, more of your knowledge in that area. And also, not to be a dick, like I don't want to be the director that's asking an actor to do something for like peanuts. That's always that's a constant fear. I guess comes with just being empathetic.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to have.
I mean,
Anyway,
as far as producing and budgeting and offering rates, I mean that gets tricky there. Yes, right now, actually there are some sites that are offering general crew rates. And I kind of compiled a list of that already. So I would like to think that site has, actor rates as well, above the line rates, below the line rates.
Right. Are these all guild members? Like, are these all like guild members?
I think SAG might have a spreadsheet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I think SAG might have a spreadsheet. And so you can play off of that. If this is a non-union thing, you can kind of start with some of their numbers and work your way up or down or however.
How hard is it? Are you in the actors union?
I'm not SAG. No, I'd love to be. And I certainly aspire to be, but the last year,
what do you need? What do you? How many more episodes of ID Discovery do you need?
Well, since those are all non-union productions, none of them count.
Are they all non-union?
Yeah, they're all non-union. Yeah,
Okay.
I think maybe 1 or 2 might be union, but I haven't been on a union one yet.
What's like roses fall from the ceiling?
I think
doors parts.
Yeah, somehow. Well, I mean, it all depends. I mean, so you get a gig on a union show, and then you get lucky enough to have a line. Then you get a voucher, a SAG voucher, and I think you got to get 3 SAG vouchers. Then you're SAG eligible, and then you got to pay an entry fee, and then you got to pay dues.
That means you get constant work, or does that mean you get?
No, it doesn't. Hell no, it doesn't mean constant work. You'll definitely get residuals from what SAG work you get. Being SAG might help you. Being SAG helps you get SAG approved bigger roles. Like it's complicated. Like let's say for example, House of Cards. I'm not gonna. Being non-union, if I'm on House of Cards, chances of me getting a line is slim to none. But since I'm SAG, then you're like, okay, this guy's SAG, this guy's union, he'll get the line. But if I need to, but if I'm trying to get SAG, I got to get a line, right?
Right.
So how do I get the line if I'm not SAG?
This is the whole thing. Like it's some weird, like it's all an insiders. This is where that like weird like Hollywood thing where you have to know someone who knows someone else in order to get like the SAG card in order to get in the door.
Yeah.
And Netflix doesn't have a submission process. Did you know that?
No.
They don't have a submission process. The whole process is, and I found this out, you have to know someone. That's it. It's on their website. We do not accept any submissions. And so I was like, well, what the fuck? They just put that on the website. So, and then I went to like Amazon same way. And then, but they'll have like, they'll have guidelines, or at least they used to, on how to shoot. Even those are taken away now. So I guess people were just submitting garbage, just endless supplies of garbage that people had to wade through, and they were like, stop.
I think what Netflix and Prime are backed into is, I think distribution companies are trying to stay relevant. So you have to go through a distribution company to get your thing on whatever platform, or for the first level distribution company then gets it distributed by Warner Brothers, Universal in theaters, or on whatever platform, or Netflix, Prime, or whatever. So, but like these primary level distributors, or whatever the case may be, I really honestly have no idea. I'm just doing, like, my plan has been to like release my own stuff on my own channels, get some, and just reach out to people. Like you said, it's know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And that's why I'm just spamming the shit out of people that have Warner on their LinkedIn or Disney on their LinkedIn. And I just reach out to them like, hey, I have this fan series. I have this fan web series on YouTube. I think you guys would eat it up.
No, we got this one gig one time. We got hoodwinked. There was this guy that they did a really good job. They set up an email account to. We didn't think anything of it at the time, but they set up a WarnerBros.com email account, which is very clever, because that is not Warner Brothers email account. Anyway, he posed as Drake's producer, and wanted us to film something in DC for Drake's DJ. And so we were like, hell yeah. And he's like, you got to film tonight. We needed a crew. We needed an emergency crew. And we were like, all right, where are you guys? We're like, just pay the deposit. And they're like, we have to go through the banks. So we did all this bank information, and everything seemed kind of legit. Like even the invoice they had forged. And then we had the weirdest night I've ever had in my life, maybe, was sitting around in this Uber with this kid that didn't talk, that was playing at being a DJ for Drake. And we spent 4 hours with him. It was so bizarre. There's so much weird footage. It's delightful. And we got back, we were like, what the fuck happened? What did we just, what happened? And we broke it all down and started going through like the email chain, and found out like we contacted Drake and their producers, and they were like, yeah, this is a false account. The account is Warner Bros, not Warner Brothers. And like all this shit. And anyway, we laughed about it for a long time, but I was kind of amazed at the sort of the how clever this was.
Jeez.
I'll send you the clip of it. It was surreal.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, I'll talk on the phone with somebody. See, most of the times I want things in writing. I want everything in email form, text form. If it's done through Production Hub or it's done through Backstage or whatever the case, LinkedIn, I want it in writing. But there does need to be that initial phone call. It's like, hey, we'll chat on the phone. We'll talk a little bit, and then I'll email you back. Reiterating the terms of this, that, and the other thing. I'll send you a deal memo, blah, 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 blah. And, like that first phone call, I'll get a feel like this guy or this gal is not making fucking sense to me whatsoever. And that phone call has helped. And what really throws me off, where I definitely know someone's full of shit is if I email somebody and then they call me back with an answer, and they just blah, 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 blah. And they're not even going near the answer. I'm going to be like, well, you know what? Let me think about this. Let me get back to you. And then I'll just write them another email like I'm not interested, because that's definitely a red flag. I write you an email with a question or a concern, and you don't write that answer, you don't confirm that in writing, you're going to call me and just blab on.
Again, but that's some of the old world meeting styles are different too. You know, like 60-year-old plus love fucking meeting in person, and they don't submit. They hate emails, and you know, they want to talk on the phone all the time, and I am.
Good point.
It's a weird style. It's you know, just because we're younger though, and that style, that sort of stuff is changing. Like now that COVID's come, everyone's doing this, you know, video stuff now, and trying to be their own sort of lighting technician, which is its own sort of nightmare, as you well know. And you know, we've tried to. My girlfriend works for an organization that does political consulting, and they do commercials and shit like that. So she's sent out kits, you know, lighting kits, and they had to like explain how to put together these, you know, comprehensive lighting kits, and for people that have never opened up for people that have never opened up a bounce in their lives, to go to like opening up a 150 watt, like, I don't know, Fresnel. It just doesn't work, and they're pointed at the face. They don't know what scrims are, and so that's been a challenge too, is trying to get these people to not make their stuff look like shit that's being recorded, like professionally recorded. Like this is, you know, thousands of people are going to see this, and this is how you want. Are you sure? Why is your head on the bottom third of the video?
Right.
Why are you going in and out of focus? Why are you sitting against something where you're backlit? Like, just a fundamental misunderstanding of cameras. And trying to teach this new generation how to do that. And so now what we have is the sort of film has switched over into this found footage style, because it's all these kids that, like, that's what they're seeing every day, is these shitty videos of their friends with the camera 2 feet away from their face. So, you know, just like we grew up loving Star Wars and Dune and Blade Runner and all these like hard science fiction, actual models, the things that I love to do, I'm doing now. These kids are doing the same thing, and they're making films the same way that they see the things that they like.
Yeah.
You know, their interests are directly represented in camera. So that's going to be an interesting thing that I think is going to continue to develop. Where does cinema go when everyone's cameraman? That's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you raised a good point. I mean, like, someone was a big fan of all these found footage horror movies. But you hit the nail on the head. You know, we were fans of the Star Wars and the Blade Runners and the Indiana Jones. I was a big fan of the Jackie Chan's. Like, if I see a fight scene, those fast shitty cuts, like you said, in some of the Bourne fight scenes and some of the there was another movie, like you know, a lot of the fight scenes was in the Marvel movies, you know, just too fast, too much quick cuts, like you said, and within a second, there's 5 cuts within 1 or 2 seconds of footage.
Yeah, you can't do a close up of the guy's face because it's not the actual actor in there. So there's all these like wides of, like, you know, martial artist experts in, like, you know, spandex, and they intercut that with like close-ups of the face. And it's not like Jackie Chan in Rumble in the Bronx, where he is tossing himself horizontally through a ladder rung and kicking a guy on the other side.
Right.
Like one shot.
Done.
And it's,
yep.
You know,
and it was the third take, but every take was one shot, up, biffed it, back to one, and the one's like 6 hits prior.
And like, or even Jet Li, I think was the last big one, right? The last big martial artist that did his own stunts that I can think of. And now it's just like stuntman on green screen.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I should say with Marvel, yeah, they have doubles. They're doing really good fight scenes. You know, you might get lucky since Captain America's double might be wearing the Captain America mask, or the Winter Soldier's wearing like that long hair and that half mask, and so they can get away with it. And they're doing good fight scenes.
Yeah, I mean, those scenes are, yeah, they're. Oof.
But it's, see, I'm not mad at the double. See, that's the magic of filmmaking. I'm not mad that someone's using a double. Jackie Chan is an anomaly in and of itself. But having that,
not everyone can be Jackie Chan. I know that was probably a bad example.
Not well, sort of, but that that style of fighting, is what I prefer. And so even though Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan have doubles, those guys are doing that big, wide, long, intense fight scene with like 17, 18 moves, cut, reposition, 17, 18 more moves, cut. Of course it's going to be a double. That's the magic of filmmaking. But like you said, like people want to work around this fight scene with a cut on every hit, a cut, 2 cuts within a hit. I mean, it's jarring and like you're taking me out of it.
Well, and so, also they're breaking rules. They're breaking really standard rules that like the switching axis. I've seen in multiple fight scenes, and by the time you're done with it, where are you? I have no idea where we are in relation to the space.
Right.
And you know what? Needs to do anything because they're on a freaking blue screen.
What is it? That 180 rule in the blue screen?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It doesn't. All this stuff. I don't get it. Again, I watched. We do this where we watch Lord of the Rings for all 3 of them, the special editions for Thanksgiving, and some of the practical effects, man. I'm in love with it. I'm in love with the practical effects. Yeah. I don't know if it's not dying, but I don't think there hasn't been one. Lord of the Rings is as far away from us now as Lord of the Rings was from Star Wars when Lord of the Rings was produced. So, is it dying, or is it just so difficult and so much of a one-man band sort of one guy's like strive for excellence that kind of consumes them, a la Peter Jackson and George Lucas? Is that why these things aren't being made anymore?
Right.
I don't know. But on the opposite side, I was a huge, like, Endgame was phenomenal. I thought those guys did an amazing job with that. The brothers, right?
Yeah, Russo brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, Russo brothers. That's right.
Yeah.
Man.
But I've brought up The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, a number of times, on this podcast. And not only was it, 95% practical, The Thing was like all these different crazy, visual, practical, conceptualized versions of The Thing. But as far as the crafting of the story goes, he broke all the horror rules. He showed The Thing within minutes of the opening credits, and it was all practical, and it was gory, and it was violent. The biggest play in that film was no women, all men, paranoid, looking over each other's shoulder, not trusting anyone. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any cheap thrills like a scream queen screaming, and there was no cheap thrills like that. It was all guys not trusting each other.
Right. The story wasn't about the alien. The real story was about like what is like paranoia.
Yeah.
That's the real thing there. And like what happens with sequels inevitably is that they think that it was about the alien and not about the story. The story is decidedly just 6 guys in a room thinking that the other guy's going to kill him. That's it. That's all there is. And the practical effects are something that John Carpenter and his team sort of worked out. I'm sure it was within a hair's breadth of looking like the goofiest thing you've ever seen. But again, I think that's like a director where
he was just like, all right, we'll go the extra mile. We'll film it this way. We'll put it in darkness. Can it walk? What do we need to make it do that? And like the Thing sequel is a great example of how it, and it's almost a shot for shot remake, I think. But they lost the idea.
Yeah. Well, I think somewhere between production, they decided not to make it a remake, but they made it a prequel.
A prequel
or something like that. Well, or I forget. No,
it wasn't.
I think development and prep was all about a remake. I think it was a last minute decision to make it a prequel. They changed a lot of things last minute, but what you're seeing is like the majority of it having been prepped for a remake, and whether there was always going to be a female involved in the remake or not, but they threw in a female lead to make this different. But then last minute they decided to make it a prequel. They threw in.
They're trying these. I know exactly why. It's because they tested it with an audience, and they're using like
that's what it was.
They're using like feedback scores to produce a movie. That sounds like the worst idea, because how many times are you going to go back to the drawing board?
It's work. Like, listen, I mean, sometimes that feedback, that test audience shit has worked. It has worked. I wish I had some examples. I was just watching I was watching a documentary about that, about the like test audiences, and how what we saw and what we loved was the response from a test audience. But I can't agree with you more. I think studios rely too much on that. I think that should be ingredients to consider, but it can't. But I don't. And maybe for a director, if a director's torn between two endings, if the director's torn between the pace or something, to test it out. I can agree with that to an extent. But I think what's happened with that test audience shit is they make that the end all be all. Oh no, reshoots, completely rewrites, complete reshoots, complete, and it's like,
well,
dude,
also,
10 people, huh?
Right. Also, like, it makes it easier because they're like, oh, we're not going to use a creature; it's going to be green screen anyway. So just take the actor, go into this thing, and just do a new scene. There's nothing. They take the artistry away when you can sort of have the actor go and like then just draw on a monster.
Yeah.
It's probably somewhere. It's a combination of all of the things. But is it also like the studio not giving enough the audience enough of a trust, like that they're going to get it? Where did that disappear? You have to have faith in your audience that they're going to understand certain aspects of the film and not like try and dumb it down for them like you would a child, and then you have like this milquetoast The Thing remake where nobody goes to see it, and
I mean,
now it's just a waste of time.
There's been films that were greenlit and they were successful, and I bought a ticket to it and I didn't like it. There's been films that were successful in the theater, released, did well.
Avatar.
And I bought a ticket. Avatar was all right. It wasn't great. It was all right. I get it. It was a cool flick.
It was fine.
But like, there have been movies where I bought a ticket. I mean, shit. So you can't. But also, it's like, how big is the test audience? 10 people, 15 people, 20 people out of 20 million. Right. So it's like you can give some stake to that.
It's also a matter of taste, right? I guess.
Yes. Yeah, like not every fucking horror movie has to be the exact same fucking horror movie. And I don't think Rob Zombie does test audience. Rob Zombie does whatever the shit he wants, and I've liked, with the exception of 3 from Hell, I've liked all of his movies.
Wasn't 3 from Hell his latest one?
It was like, I think it was the third Devil's Rejects movie.
Yeah.
And it was just, I didn't like it. And that's me personally. And I like his stuff. And I don't really think Tarantino gives a shit about test audiences either.
You know,
but somewhere Tarantino wanted to like make movies super long with super long talking, and then to just have like this super climactic ending. That I think it started with Death Proof, where it was like the girls just talking and talking and talking, and then it got to like this horrific murder, and then another batch of girls just talking and talking and talking, and then it was like one of the greatest car chases I think I've ever seen filmed. So such an intense ending to Death Proof. But now that
what's that double one, right?
yeah, it was part of Grindhouse, and Death Proof was
Yeah.
Stuntman Mike with that Death Proof car.
Yeah.
But it was a part of Grindhouse, which made matters even worse, man, because I went and saw Grindhouse, and then the trailers are part of like the little mini the trailers during the intermission were a part of like the mini story. So I'm sitting there having to pee so bad, but I stayed in the theater I think for 5 straight hours just watching the full Grindhouse.
Was it really that long? Oh my god!
I think it was 5 hours. I think each movie was 2.5, maybe 2:25, and then they had that intermission with the fake trailers. And then one of them, the Machete trailer, turned into the movie Machete. So,
I mean, the guy's in love with his own pen, let's say. But again, singular vision, and he can. Some of those scenes are phenomenally well directed.
I mean, I'm not a studio head, and so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know what it's like to be in charge of $25 million, $50 million, and so it's like you've got all these other aspects that go within that. But it's like, listen, if you hired a director to make his own script, or you hired a director that has a great understanding of the script and a great vision, you have to kind of trust that. The guy has a good track record. You kind of have to trust that. And it's not, I don't know, like
it's a tastemaker. It's like he's the one where everyone it's just like the Bourne Identity movies. Like they were like, oh, that's a great example of a good action movie. Let's do more of that. And then you get all of these subpar replicates that it actually starts to parody the one good one, Yeah. And that's what we have with, there is Quentin Tarantino clones all over the place, and all of the dialogue sounds bad now because it is bad dialogue. Quentin Tarantino is, I think, a terrible writer, but he has a voice, and it is a very distinct voice. And if Tarantino does it, it's fine. When other people are doing Tarantino, it sounds like garbage. I'm only going to go see one Tarantino movie. But you have to trust the director. And I have to get going.
Yeah. All right. Awesome, man.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank Patrick. I can't thank you enough for coming on. We rocked out a good episode, good conversation, a lot of great stuff, a lot of great ideas, a lot of great sharing of ideas, and I'm definitely inspired and continue to be inspired. Before I let you go, any plugs, links, socials you want to put out there?
Please go to so I was a bit ambitious with my Kickstarter goal, which is $50,000, which I know was ridiculous, but I wanted to see how Kickstarter works, and how does Patreon work, how does GoFundMe work, and all these different places. So I'm actually learning a lot about the funding process, which is like could be a whole nother episode. Please go to Kickstarter /Body Electric, and if you want to donate, that'd be great, but that's not really the point of it. I'd really like you to share. That's as simple as it is, and the more people find out about it, the easier it is for me to make. So go to thebodyelectric.org or Kickstarter /Body Electric and spread the love.
Awesome. Check it. Well, you heard it here. Links to Patrick's stuff in the description below. And Patrick, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and chatting up with me and helping me and yourself, and I guess what viewers I do have get through the quarantine, with some semi-entertaining shit, if not really entertaining shit.
I would love to do it again. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. Until next time, you know what to do.